happy to be with Don today. He's volunteering his time for us, which we're super grateful for. And his name is Don Murdoch. He's joined the funeral and cemetery profession in 1986. It's been his honor to have served thousands of families over the years, helping them both in their time of need and when pre-planning. He believes everyone who walks through Dignity Memorial's doors should be informed and prepared. And to this end, he is proud to serve with Dignity Memorial, educating and helping families in our communities. So I'm going to mute myself and turn my video off and hand it over to you, Don. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today. I just want to make sure I can share my screen here, so bear with me one second. Okay, so I can't see, for some reason it looks different today than it usually does. I'm trying to see where I can share my screen.
It should be showing up. It's not showing up at the bottom of your screen where there's the little green share screen button.
It's not.
Okay, I'm just going to make sure you are a panelist. And you are. Do you want to quickly email Tori your presentation and she can share that for us?
Sure. Just let me see something here. Oh, okay. You know what? I found it. It's okay.
Okay, great. Even better.
Sorry, folks, for the technical difficulties. I'm
Always.
just going to share my screen and start chatting. And again, thank you for the introduction. I've been doing this a long time, and I've shared many times. Sorry, it's kind of gotten in my drop-down box is in my way, so I've got to move that out of the way here. So bear with me one second, very sorry. There we go. Okay, so sorry for the technical difficulties again. Thank you for joining us. I am with Dignity Memorial. As Nicole said, I've been doing this for quite some time. It's been a wonderful experience. I've seen a lot of things in my many years in the pre-planning side of it. And the name of this was Funeral Planning in Difficult Times, and I decided last night just to change it. It's really the same presentation, but you know, when we experience a loss, it's always difficult. So there's never a time where it's not. So hopefully today we'll answer some of your questions. Many of you are here for different reasons, whether it's just getting to that time of life where you think you should have things prepared, maybe you've suffered a loss or been to a funeral recently. Many reasons why people come. A little bit about me and my company. I've been doing this for many years. I actually knew when I was probably 6 or 7 that I wanted to be in the funeral business. I remember it vividly. If anybody's heard me speak before, I've told this before. Went to my grandfather's funeral just outside of Hamilton, Ontario, and of course, back in those days, they were large families. He was one of, I think, 8 or 10 siblings. And the chapel was filled with people, but I can remember to this day the casket, my grandfather, the viewing, which is interesting because I have a hard time remembering what I had for breakfast, but I can remember that. And I knew back then I wanted to be in the business. So I never got in to be a funeral director, but I have been doing the pre-planning and have seen thousands of families over these many years. Our company has 2 funeral homes here in Edmonton. One is on the south end, that's Hainstock's Funeral Home on 34 Avenue, and Memories on St. Albert Trail in the north end. We also have funeral homes in Barrhead, Leduc, Stony Plain, and Fort Saskatchewan, so we're well situated. So as I said, it's difficult to have this conversation at any time. But it's more difficult if you're unprepared and something happens. And it's a little bit easier if we can help prepare you for something that we're all unfortunately going to have to face one day. My hope, after being in this for so many years and seeing tragedies in my own family, I had a 29-year-old niece who passed away. She died in a head-on car collision. And I can tell you my sister never recovered from that. At the same time, I've helped friends. I've had my own family, father, mother, in-laws have passed away. I've seen many different situations. So really, I hope that in this day of information that nobody walks through our door uneducated and unprepared. We really want people to have a plan and make it easier for their family. So today I'm hoping to answer a lot of your questions. Again, in this 40, 45 minutes or so I'm going to speak. It's impossible to give you the information that I'd like to give you. I could talk all day and not cover everything. And again, many of you have come here looking for maybe different information, different answers. There's going to be a question and answer period at the end. And of course, I'm going to show my contact information. So if you do have further questions or want more information, you'll be free to contact me. But today I hope to give you a little bit of information about, how to plan a service, helping reduce the stress on your family, the importance of recording your wishes and being very specific about it, what some of the costs might be, and more, as importantly, what kind of services and what can you expect? What if you haven't been through a funeral or you haven't been involved in actually arranging one for somebody? There's a lot of things that people aren't aware of. I hope to go over that with you, talk about the financial part of it, and of course, where you can get expertise and more help. So, I thought I'd seen just about everything in my life as a funeral professional until COVID came along, and then when COVID came along, that changed everything again. So I guess I'll never say I've seen everything yet. As I said, funeral planning, losing a loved one can be difficult at the best of times. There's only two ways that we can do it. We wait till the time comes, and sometimes we're prepared, sometimes we're not. Or we can pre-plan it, get the information, share it with our family. There's two ways to pre-plan. You can write everything down in paper. We're going to walk you through that. Or you can actually make the arrangement, pay for it, and have it in place for your family. Having things in place is going to be easier than waiting. Other things that could affect or add stress to making an arrangement, things like unexpected health events, long-term, short-term illnesses, maybe an accident, catastrophe, and I put pandemic in there because that changed everything. So lots of things can add stress to a family. So I'm hoping to walk you through a few things today. I'm going to ask you to start using your imaginations now a little bit over the next two slides. We all plan to be here today, and if something would have happened to you yesterday before you came here, would your loved ones know what to do? Or if somebody in your family passed away and you had to make arrangements, would you know what to do? Would you know who to call? Have you dealt with a funeral home before? Is there one in your area or somebody you know? Do you know how your loved one would want to be remembered? What kind of service you should have for them? Would you even know where to start? When we make funeral arrangements, somebody passes away, there can be well over 100 questions that need to be answered. And again, I like this picture. I've seen this many times. It's not that I like it, but again, putting your thinking caps on or using your imagination. What if you went out for dinner last night and never made it to this meeting today? Something happened. Who would this be in this picture in your family that's phoning me, phoning our company at 6 o'clock in the morning, middle of the afternoon, whenever it is, to make arrangements? Hopefully you all have your wills made. Hopefully you've all selected an executor. Could be a son, a daughter, brother, sister, a different family member, or somebody altogether different. But if something unexpected happened, would they understand? Would they know what to do? Would they know who to call? Again, just the basics. Typically when someone passes away, even though people don't like to discuss funeral planning, we're probably the second or the third phone call that your next of kin or your executor is going to make. So we're the ones that get called right away. And typically what happens is, and we do have 24-hour answering service. If we get a call at 3 in the morning, you will talk to a funeral director. They're going to ask you some questions such as, where's your loved one? Because was this expected? Was it sudden? They're going to ask you if you're the executor. They're going to ask you to bring in a copy of the will. And again, we are obligated to deal with the executor who has to make the decisions. Or if there's no executor or no will, then there's a pecking order, but there's certain family members that eventually somebody's appointed and we take our orders from them. So the first thing we do is we give you a little bit of information. 2 questions we always get asked when somebody phones, or almost always, and I don't know if anybody wants to take a guess in the chat box, but somebody phones us to book an appointment because mom or dad passed away. What do you think the 2 questions might be that they ask? And I'm just going to wait 30 seconds to see if somebody might have an idea and type it in the chat box.
Actually, I don't know if folks have access to the chat box. You might have to just give it away for us, Don.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. So typically people will phone and they're going to say exactly what's on the screen. What do I do now? You know, what services do you have? What do I need to bring, et cetera, et cetera. Second question they're going to ask is, how much is this going to cost? And of course, we don't know that because the services are individual. But again, it's these kind of questions that we can answer throughout our lifetimes. And if we don't, then that leaves a burden somebody else. I'm going to go through some of the things you have to think of in a couple minutes. But initially, they're going to book an appointment, have you come in, executor, other family members, whoever wants to come. And they're going to ask for a copy of the will so we can see who the executor is and see that it's signed. What's in the will is not our business, just we need to know who we're dealing with. They're also going to send you an email with instructions on what to bring, such as clothing and other paperwork, some of the documents you may need. And then we have our initial meeting. And at that initial meeting, we start to answer some of these many, many questions. So I'll go through those in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about why we're all here today. And again, everyone's going to have a different reason. Many different reasons why people do meet. But what it really comes down to in our lives, and this is common for all people, is that first and foremost, we plan for every important event in our lives, whether it's a wedding, honeymoon, anniversary, vacation, trip to Mexico, doesn't matter. Matter of fact, everyone who's listening today had to make plans to be on this call, to meet and get some information. So planning is a very common and normal part of life. The other thing we do though is that we protect our families. So we plan their education, we plan, you know, we go and buy a car, we plan where we live. But then we also protect ourselves from things that may happen to us. Some of those things might be insuring your house, insuring your vehicle, having life insurance. But when you think about it, what's the real reason we do these things? If we had a house fire and lost our house, it would be devastating if we didn't have some kind of insurance coverage. If we got in a car accident, when we were liable for somebody's injury, it could be devastating. So other than the fact that it's mandatory, what we're really doing is we're protecting our family. And the same goes for funerals. The interesting thing is that we will pay premiums on some of these things that may or may never happen to you, thousands of dollars through our lifetime to make sure that if something were to happen, we are protected. But doesn't it make sense that if we know that one day we're going to pass away, and unfortunately there's a 1 out of 1 chance we're going to pass away, everybody will at some point do that. Doesn't it make sense that we prepare for that and make it easier for our loved ones, whether it's a spouse, child, sibling, whatever the case may be? So we tried to put this in 4 simple steps for families. The first one is to reflect on, you know, how we want to be remembered and why we're here. I kind of like this picture because when I was growing up, everybody had these photo albums. And today we have smartphones, and you'll see that when we go out, people post what they're eating. They go to a restaurant, they'll make a meal at home and post it on Facebook or some other medium. They'll go on vacation. We'll be taking pictures of the beautiful sunset in Hawaii or wherever we are. So memories are definitely important, and your life is important. Our life story. And so it's not unusual to have these kind of memories. But what do you want your family to remember about your life? What was important to you? And why are you here today? And how can we help your family to deal with this? The second step would be recording the information. We have developed a booklet. We have over 50 years experience. We've developed a booklet called the Personal Planning Guide. And this is a 23-page booklet that is absolutely free to everyone. And what we normally do is we would offer to anyone who's on this call today. If you haven't received one from us before, the only caveat is that we like to sit down. There's absolutely no obligation to buy anything, but we go through some of the pages, which helps us to show you how to record certain things, to plan for your funeral. And then the rest is up to you. The purpose of this booklet is to fill it in. They're individual booklets, so everybody gets one. And you keep it in a safe place at home. Whether it be, I've heard people keep it in the freezer. And actually, you know, if there was an emergency and responders come to your home, they will look at your fridge or in your freezer to see if there's any important papers. And so it covers all different subjects. It covers things like your important information, things that we don't think about today, but we need later. When a death occurs and the family comes in to meet us, we gather this information, and it's going to be information not only on, you know, the deceased, name, birthplace, that kind of thing, but we also gather information on, you know, father's name, mother's name, mother's maiden name, and place of birth. Often we'll have, or I shouldn't say often, but we'll have children or grandchildren come in that won't know grandma's maiden name, that kind of thing. And so it's helpful if you can record that information ahead of time. My family is an example. I had an aunt pass away a couple of years ago. She was 99. I was her executor. Actually, it was 2018. And then 2019, my mom passed away. And they were born on a farm in Saskatchewan, just outside of Yorkton. I had no idea where. I was able to find a birth certificate, and all it had was a land location because they were born in a farm a few miles outside of Yorkton. So if you have some information, it's important to put it in there. You have things dealing with your finances, bank accounts, investments, wills, online groups that you may have joined, for instance, Facebook or Twitter or other things. You may have subscriptions. These all have to be closed off when somebody passes away, and people often don't think of that. So this booklet is meant to cover just about everything we need to know, and it really does cover about 85 to 90% of information that we require. If you have it filled out and your family brings it in, and it is often brought into us, we have that information available. One of the important things for us, of course, in the funeral profession is the service preferences, where you can sit down. If a death has occurred and you're not prepared, you have to going to go through quite a few questions, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about them. If you are prepared and you have put things in place, or at least recorded your information, it's going to make it easier. But you're going to need information such as, you know, as a burial or cremation. You know, are we going to have a service in the church or the chapel, or, you know, a legion, somebody's home? There's all different things that are done today. Do I want a service of remembrance? Do I want a gathering? Do I want religious, not religious? Do I even want a service? And often people that say they don't want a service may just have the burial take place, but then they usually end up having a gathering later anyways. Visitation. You know, when I was young and I went to my grandfather's funeral, that was pretty standard. Casket with a viewing, and, you know, there's probably 100 or more people there. Today, visitation is completely different. It's just a chance for family, close friends, those who want to say goodbye, especially maybe before cremation takes place. It's just a chance to shed some tears and gather together. You have to decide if you want a reception, what kind of food, catering. and personalization. Again, different from 60 years ago or 55 years ago. Today, everything is very personal. And we have people that will come into us and with requests for different types of services. There was one service we did at Memories. This was pre-pandemic, where a family fellow was a farmer and was a mechanic, loved machinery. So the family came in to make arrangements, and after they left, our manager Adam got a hold of his brother-in-law who worked for a tractor dealership. I think it was John Deere, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, they drove a tractor over, parked it in the parking lot without the family's knowledge, and then the next day, or when the service transpired, the family come in and they were just thrilled at the fact that the tractor was there. We had set up the chapel with mechanical equipment. There might have been a motorcycle there. The family was just thrilled because nothing spoke more about his life than those kind of things. Today we do services, golf, knitting. There's all different themes, veterans, police. We also, you may have seen a commercial of ours. We have one where they're carrying an urn on a kayak or a canoe, and there's four pallbearers carrying it along a trail. Those are actual services that we've done being reenacted for a commercial. So services today are very personal. So when you come in, or if you're starting the planning process, the first step is to really sit down and talk to somebody and get your questions answered. Go to a funeral home and find out, see what the staff is like, see what the facility is like, find out what services need to be done. There's two things that need to be done. Our services, and when I say our services, that's the necessary things that we do to prepare for a burial or cremation. Your services are the things you want done at that service, whether it's a burial and the cemetery, you're going to have a 2 days of viewing and a service in the chapel, or whether that's a service of remembrance where cremation's already taken place, and maybe you have the urn at the church or the chapel. So there's all different things that have to be considered. I recommend sit down, get your questions answered. It's no different than financial planning or putting a will in place and getting proper information from a professional. You want to find out, you want to feel comfortable with the funeral home. You want to know that they can look after your needs, and you want to leave those instructions for your family. So the third part is securing your services. Securing is simply saying that, okay, step one is done. I met with somebody, I've gone through the booklet, they've talked about the different services, we recorded all the information. We are now ready to put the book away, and we're going to tell our family where it is, but now should you pay for it or not? We do find that today, compared to 50 years ago, pre-planning is much more common. There are advantages to pre-planning. The first one would be simply emotional. You're gone, and whether it's a spouse, a child, or some other family member, are they prepared for it? And how is that going to impact them emotionally when you've passed away? So putting plans in place ahead of time certainly makes it easier for a family, and at the same time takes that stress off of them and answers those two questions. We know what they wanted, and I know I'm doing the right thing because they've left me instructions. So it's a big benefit. And I can say this with all sincerity, in all the years I've done this, I've never had somebody say to me, I'm glad Mom left this for me to do. We've had many people who've gone through both experiences where one person didn't have arrangements, the next one did, and they always say it's easier when it's done. The other reason to secure your services would be to freeze the cost. In Alberta, we are regulated by the Funeral Service Regulatory Board, and we don't see your money. So when you enter into a pre-planned funeral arrangement, we do a contract, a legally binding contract with all the services that you requested at the time. That legally binding contract is enforced until you pass away. So it doesn't matter whether it's a day, a week, a month, a year, or 20 years. that contract is enforced. The money is then held by a third party, which grows to cover inflation. And so 20 years later, somebody may pass away who has a pre-planned funeral. That's when the money is released to the funeral home. That's done for your protection, because in the old days, and I haven't seen it in a long, long time, but 50, 75 years ago, a funeral home might go out of business and the family might lose their money, but that doesn't happen today. Today, you are protected and your services are guaranteed. The other advantage to maybe prepaying is that when a death occurs, the family or the funeral home expects to be paid fairly quickly. So normally they'll ask for a 50% deposit and balance due before the service. A lot of families just aren't prepared for that, not aware of that. On a pre-planning basis, you may very well pay cash or pay in full, but you also have opportunity to choose a term anywhere from 3 to 20 years, 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20, depending on circumstances and age. And sometimes that's better for a family. But again, it gives you more options, more flexibility, and ensures that things are done the way you want them and what you want it done. You made it easier for the family. And then the last step is also very important. You want to share that information. You want to complete your booklet. You want to leave it somewhere safe at home. It's going to contain some sensitive information, so you don't want it to fall into wrong hands. But you also want to make sure that it's filled out and let your executor, your family know about it. Today, it is more common to pre-plan, but there's still a lot of people, especially children, who don't want to think about mom or dad passing away. Mom or dad might say, we're going to go make our funeral arrangements, and they'll say, you know what, just leave it for me, I'll do it when you're gone. Or they'll say, do what you want, just tell me where the papers are and I'll worry about it later. They're either being protective or they're simply not wanting to think about mom or dad passing away or another family member. And then kind of in their mind, they're going to deal with it when the time comes. But unfortunately, if you don't have the discussion with them and talk about what you want done, they're not going to be as prepared as they think they are, and it could be very difficult. An example would be, we've had families come in and say to us, I want a simple cremation, or mom wanted a simple cremation. And we're going to have 20 people. This is a true story. This one happened at one of our funeral homes. Family came in, mom just wanted a small service in the chapel, just a gathering. We don't even want a service, just a gathering. And we want this, we want that. And a few minutes later, the son, I think, was mentioned that, and we're going to have the priest come by and say a few words. So in their mind, they were thinking simple, but in our minds, that changed what we were thinking drastically. So a priest coming in isn't just simply saying a few words. So they were really talking about having a small service, not just a gathering. And there was quite a bit more to it than that. I could ask everybody on the presentation today to tell me in your mind what is that you envision for yourself. And 10 of you might be thinking simple cremation, but again, you could have 10 different thoughts what a simple cremation means to you. So this is why we sit down and we use our expertise to ask the right questions. And this is where you need to sit down and say to your family, this is what I want, and make sure they understand it. And that'll make, again, things much easier for them. We definitely encourage you to share the information. It's hard to answer the question of costs. I can tell you in general, and I'm only going to be able to quote our company. I can't quote other funeral homes, but typically services can go anywhere from $3,000 up to $15,000, depending if it's cremation or burial. If you have cemetery property, do you want a service? Do you want it at the chapel? What kind of service you want? Are you having catering or reception? What kind of urn you choose? What kind of casket? So there is a great price range as far as services go. Again, when we sit down and we're able to talk with a family and get some specific information, then we can give an accurate quote. But I can kind of tell you cremation, of course, is a little bit less than burial. Cremation could be anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000, depending on if you have a service or not. Could even be a bit more. Burial with a casket, and I'm only talking funeral service, could be $8,000 to $15,000, depending again on the casket and kind of service you want. A little bit more about our company. We are the largest provider of funeral cemetery information services in North America. I know we have over 1,900 locations. We have a head office in Canada in Vancouver, and we have a large staff right across Canada, funeral homes, and we have cemeteries in BC and Manitoba. In the rest of the provinces, we have funeral homes scattered around. We work and live in the community. We do a lot of, supporting charities. And today it's interesting that we'll hold events that are community events so that people aren't afraid of us. I know at Memories, we do the Rock in August every summer. We'll get up and cook breakfast from 7 till 9. We have all the antique cars parked in our parking lot, and it's well attended. Many, many people come out to that. In our Calgary, one of our Calgary locations, we have Easter, where families will come out with their young children, do an Easter egg hunt, things like that. So it's not all about business. It's about just being part of the community for us. There are some benefits that we provide that are exclusive benefits. And I just want to touch on a couple of them because these are ones that are used often by families. The first is the personal planning guide. And again, if you'd like to receive one, please take my contact information. We would like to sit down with you and go through it with you with absolutely no obligation. A couple of things we have that are unique to our company are the Compassion Helpline. We have a relationship with a grief counseling organization, and we offer 13 months of grief counseling at absolutely no charge to the immediate family. And it's interesting that this is often used by men, and it's often used in the middle of the night. You could wake up, you've lost your spouse, you're lonely, need somebody to talk to, just going through a hard time. You often will phone in and get to know one of the counselors and talk to them constantly. And that's good for 13 months. And the other interesting thing is that anyone who attends your funeral could be a childhood friend who's grieving. It could be a friend from church, from the Legion, your next door neighbor that you've known for 30 years. They're able to use this service for 3 months, and again, at absolutely no charge to them. Being such a large company, we have relocation protection, meaning that if you make an arrangement here in Alberta and you decide to move, whether it be to Vancouver, or my wife and I are from Hamilton or from Winnipeg, I'm from Hamilton, but all our families back east, we just might move back there one day and we can move our arrangements with us. You're always protected because the money is secured and your services will be honored elsewhere. And the other support that is very, very important is the aftercare. I have a team of family service advisors who meet with families after the death. Sometimes it's before the service, sometimes it's after, but we go through a checklist with you. We populate and go through and apply for the Canada Pension Benefits, Survivors Benefits. We notify all the government agencies. We notify the credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion. And then we go through our checklist just to make sure that the family hasn't missed anything. Whether it's, again, closing some of those accounts, making sure that you have everything in place, just to make it easier in the weeks to follow, where you're going to be, or your executor is going to be finalizing the will and those kind of things. So we'll sit down, we continue our relationship well past the one meeting, and we're always a phone call away if you have more questions about anything. So that's probably one of our more important services. And again, I think I'm just about finished. There's a lot more I could talk about. And I hope that I answered some of your questions. On the screen, you should see my contact information. That is my phone number. Now I manage Calgary and Edmonton. I live in Edmonton. My email address is don.murdoch with a K @dignitymemorial.com. If you'd like to receive a booklet or you simply have some questions and you just want a few answers, by all means, reach out to me via email or phone call and we'll be glad to help you.